thorough. That half of the city was fighting the Romans, and the other half of the city had no idea what was happening. The Jews were sitting, celebrating, eating, and drinking. Sometimes when I meet with Jews, and especially those outside of Israel, I get that kind of feeling too. That there's a deadly struggle going on, and half of the Jewish people hasn't got the slightest idea what is happening. Even those Jews who visit Israel don't really see Israel. You can say it at the Plaza Hotel and never see Israel. You see the Plaza Hotel. You go to the Kota, to the wall, and not see Israel. Go to Masada and not see Israel. What's happening in Israel is happening in the neighborhoods, shkunot, development towns. And I think it's vital that we understand that we're in a desperate struggle. And we have to, in a very short, in a very few years, in a very short time, attempt to rapidly and speedily overcome and correct the terrible things that have taken place in Israel over the past close to 40 years. I think that everyone assumes that when I come to speak, I'll speak about the Arab problem. I'll speak about the Arab problem later. But the Arab problem in Israel is a secondary problem. The problem in Israel is a Jewish problem. There would be no Arab problem if there would not be a Jewish problem. It's a Jewish problem. Jewish problem. The Jewish problem arises in the fact that we have not succeeded in Israel in building a Jewish state. Perhaps it's a state of Jews. But it's not a Jewish state. The values that we have created inside Israel are not Jewish values. And you can speak Hebrew. That doesn't mean that you have Jewish values. The Pope speaks Hebrew. He's not a Jew. Bilam's donkey spoke. I assume he spoke Hebrew. That's not the point. The point is that we had a dream. For 2,000 years we had a magnificent dream. And Jews, wherever they were, whether they were in Yemen or in Poland or in Morocco or in Germany, anywhere, the Jews for 2,000 years prayed 3 times a day. And that was the real Zionism. Herzl didn't create Zionism. Herzl's great-grandfather created Zionism. When Jews 3 times daily prayed, may our eyes behold thy return to Zion, that was Zionism. And it was a dream that someday we too would have a state. And someday we would have this magnificent Jewish state. The fact of the matter is that we don't have a Jewish state. I was in Rabbi prison for 8.5 months on an administrative arrest. Another example of democracy. An administrative arrest is when you're arrested and there's no trial. Not only is there no trial, you're not told what the charge is, which is one way to save money. Israel's in difficult straits. But in any case, the point is, in my 8.5 months in Raleigh prison, I sat with Jewish criminals. The overwhelming majority of those criminals were Sephardic Jews. And that, I want to tell you, is the greatest crime of the state of Israel. But when the Sephardic Jews came to Israel, they didn't know what crime was. How many bank robbers do you think were among the Jews of Morocco when they were in Morocco? How many murderers were there in Yemen among the Jews when they were in Yemen? How many prostitutes were there in Baghdad among the Jews when they were in Iraq? We never knew such things. For centuries, the Sephardic Jews never knew of such things. They came to the Holy Land to be spiritually wiped out. And I can't think of a lesser term. I can't think of a more correct term than a spiritual holocaust that took place in Israel. And that's the difference between the physical Holocaust. There were two Holocausts in our time. One which we all talk about, and one which we never speak about. One which was done to us by Gentiles, and one which was done to us by Jews. One which was done physically, and one which was done spiritually. It's so important that we know what happened so that we can understand what is happening now, and so that we can change it. So that we can change it. And when the rabbis say, Kol ahava she'en ima tochacha, eina ahava, any love that doesn't carry with it criticism is not real love, then the rabbis knew what they were talking about. Tochacha, criticism, is a positive commandment, a Torah. One must criticize with love. One must criticize in order to change things. The truth of the matter is, at the beginning of 1948, 800,000 Sephardic Jews poured into Israel. These Jews, for the most part, did not have to run away. I don't say that the Jews in Morocco were overwhelmingly happy. They certainly weren't overwhelmingly unhappy. The Jews of Iraq certainly lived very, 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 very well. The overwhelming majority of these Jews came to Israel because they were Zionists, real Zionists, not the Herzl brand. Herzl once said, if I thought that the Jews could assimilate, I would advocate it. But the Gentiles will not allow it. Therefore, we need a Jewish state. That wasn't the Zionism of the Sephardic Jews. And they came there because they wanted to live in a Jewish state. What was done to them when they came is a tragedy which has yet to be written about. There should be a book, a black book, on what was done. Because when they came in, the government of Israel at that time looked, and one question, one thought ran through its mind. And that question was, that thought was, for whom will they vote? That's the key question. For whom will they vote? Now here are people, overwhelmingly observant Jews. They certainly, once they had acclimated in Israel, if left alone, would not have voted for Labor, for a secular party. That is for certain. And here is a country doubling overnight. Now what was done was a deliberate attempt to change this. And they changed it. You speak to Sephardic Jews who arrived in 1948 to 1951. And by the way, things were so bad that the government was forced to appoint a commission. And I have a copy of it. Even they were forced to admit the terrible things that were done. A Jew was put into a Mavara, a transit camp. you wanted a job, the first question asked was, are you a member of Histadrut? And if you were not a member of Histadrut, you did not get a job. It was that simple. You did not get the job. Here were people. I mean, they didn't know where they were, what they were. They were helpless people. So of course they joined Histadrut with all of the ramifications that meant. They were asked, where does your child study? In what school? A religious school? Or religious? They did not get jobs. There was a process. The father was given a slip of paper. They said, take this slip of paper to the Histadrut school. In those days, there was Histadrut school and religious school, and they generally signed school. Take the slip to the Histadrut school. Register your child, have the paper stamped, and then bring it to the labor exchange, and you'll get a job. That's what happened. Of course, Jews here were so delighted there was a Jewish state that nobody ever thought to look just beneath that surface. 10,000 Yemenite Jewish children. Yaldei Teiman. To this day, they're known as that. Yaldei Teiman, the children of Yemen, came to Israel in 1948 without their parents. They were brought by youth aliyah. You know, if you mention youth aliyah, everybody says that's a wonderful thing. Adasa, youth aliyah, you give money, and it is a wonderful thing, but it's a terrible thing. The head of youth aliyah in those days was Moshe Kol. Moshe Kol later became Minister of Tourism. Kol Moshe, dying in days. Anyway, the voice was the voice of Moshe Kol, but what he did, they took 10,000 Yemenite children, boys, they were all boys. So the parents would not let the boys go. Took boys between the age of 7 and 14. Each of these children, there were no irreligious Jews in Yemen. There were no religious Jews. Everyone came with more than 2,000 years because the Yemenite Jews arrived apparently in Yemen already at the time of the first temple. So 2,500 years at least of staying Jew. They came with their Shabbat, their Kashrut, and their earlocks that they called simanim. Their peyot that they called simanim, which means sign. That was a sign of a Jew in Yemen. His earlocks. It's not just in Williamsburg. He took his children. They brought them to Israel. They put them in kibbutzim. Can you imagine what happened to these children? Take a child of 7, 8 months. Suddenly he's told Shabbat and Kashrut, that was necessary in the Galut. But here you're now in Israel. You don't need that. Child of 7, 8, what does he lost his payroll to Siman. He lost his Shabbat. He lost his Kashrut. And instead he was given the values of Dizengoff Street. Wonderful values. In my wing, in Raleigh prison, 53 prisoners. There were 4 Yemenites serving life sentences for murder. I can tell you that in 2,500 years in Yemen, there weren't 4 Jewish murderers. You don't think that cries out to the heavens? So now we pick up papers in Israel, cry, and in the Knesset there was a whole debate on it. This crying. What's so startling about it? If your values are now money, and you don't have money, you do one of 2 things. You either steal or move to Los Angeles or the 5 Towns. That's not funny, that's a tragedy. That's the destruction of the Jewish people. Not by Germans, but Jews. more than 500 Yemenite Jewish children disappeared. And the Yemenite Jews for 30 years now have been screaming. These infants were born and disappeared. And the parents were told the baby died. The baby died. Where's the body? Where's the grave? Body, grave. So these were simple people out of the 14th century. But after 20 years, 30 years, they're children. Are not so simple. And they're demanding, where did my brother go? Where did my sister go? And there was a refusal in Knesset to appoint a commission. The government will not appoint a commission. We know why they won't appoint a commission. The babies were stolen and given away for adoption. That's not a tragedy. Why do I mention this? I mention this because just a startling example of so many of the things that we simply don't know about. And instead we have this image of governments of Israel that everything's pure, everything's holy, everything's nice and wonderful and moral. And especially when they get up, these same people, and talk about Kahane and raise the banner of democracy and morality and ethics, they talk about morality. They talk about love and truth. I don't even want to talk about what they did before the state came into being. When they deliberately fired on the Irgun ship Altalena and murdered 20 Jews in cold blood off Frischman Street in Tel Aviv. I don't even want to talk about the fact that they deliberately kidnapped members of the Irgun and Sternis and handed them over to the British. But they have the chutzpah. They have the chutzpah to talk about being moral and democratic and anti-racism. What was done to the Sephardic Jews was the most racist. If those 500 babies had been Polish babies, would they have been kidnapped? So what has happened is that the secular Zionists thought that they could build a state without Judaism, but with proud nationalism. You cannot do it. You cannot do it. The secular Sabra is neither a religious Jew nor a Zionist. The average Jewish youngster doesn't know, in Israel, doesn't know who he is. He has no identity. He doesn't feel Jewish. He says, I'm an Israeli. An Israeli? An Arab can also be an Israeli. And a Druze can be an Israeli. And if a Chinaman came to Israel and became a citizen, he would also be an Israeli. You're not an Israeli, you're a Jew who lives in Israel. But that he doesn't know, because he doesn't feel that. He doesn't feel that. And so what we have today is the disintegration of the Jewishness of Israel. I want to tell you that there are 3,500 Jewish women today in Israel married to Arabs. And if you think that that's not much, but let me tell you what it means in Israel to marry an Arab. Because of the laws of the state, in order for a Jew to marry an Arab, she has to convert to Islam. Because if she's Jewish, the rabbinate has a jurisdiction over her, and they obviously will not marry her to an Arab, to a Muslim. So she has to convert. So 3,500 Jewish women converted are living today in Arab villages. There are thousands of Jewish babies. They are Jewish babies, according to halakha. In practice, they're Arabs. They're Arabs. They hate the Jews. Who talks about this? Now, when I raised this issue in the Knesset, Shulamit Aloni got up and shouted, "You're a Nazi." Now, get the fact that I said to her, I'm a Nazi for being opposed to this. So is your grandfather. That's a different story. The fact of the matter is that not that she got up and said Nazi. The outrageous thing was that not one religious Jewish Knesset member got up and said Kahane is right. That's the tragedy. I don't expect anything more from Shuli. I mean, she's a loser. What can I do? I don't expect anything from Yossi Salri. I don't think. But I do expect from Mavdal and from Agudat Yisrael and from Shas. That's what I expect. And nothing. Why? They aren't, because they are members of the cabinet. And if you're a member of the government, you cannot vote, no confidence in it, or else you're out of the government and you lose the subsidy. That's the name of the game, subsidy. Now, when I say there were 3,500 Jewish women married to Arabs, I'm not talking about the 10,000 or so Jewish women who live with Arabs without marriage. And I'm not talking about the thousands of Jewish prostitutes whose pimps are Arabs. And that's part of Israel today. That's what's happening in Israel today. When you go visit the coastline in Israel, the beaches, just north of Tel Aviv, at Tel Baruch, in the evening, that's where the prostitutes come. They're all Jewish, the prostitutes. The clients are half Arabs, and the pimps are all Arabs. This is what we created. This is a Jewish state. This is a Jewish state? Any evening, in any city in Israel, at a cafe, you'll see Arabs sitting with Jewish Jews. The question is that rule, or isn't it in a democracy? And that's the way it is. That's democracy. What do you want? In a Jewish state, Israel, is there a contradiction between Western values and Jewish values? Of course there are. Of course there's a difference. And these wimpy Orthodox Knesset members that don't have the courage to get up and say there is a difference, there's a contradiction there, and we have to choose. This is the tragedy. Of course there are Jewish values which are consistent with Western values. There are, but there are Jewish values which are inconsistent with Western values. We have to have the courage to get up and say that. And when a Western value is inconsistent with a Jewish value, and when a Knesset law is inconsistent with a Jewish value, then we have to have the courage and say the Jewish value takes precedent over any other value, including a Knesset law. That's why when I took my oath in the Knesset, I took the oath of office, and I added a verse from the Psalms, which made it clear that I obligate myself to the laws of the Knesset, except and insofar as they are consistent with Torah laws. If not, I make no bones about it. The Torah law for me takes precedence, and that's that. If you like it, fine. If not, not. And I want to find one Knesset member, one leftist Knesset member, who would not say that if a Knesset law is inconsistent with his conscience, that he won't place his conscience over the Knesset law. I remember in 1956, there was an incident on the night that the Sinai War began. A curfew was ordered in all the Arab villages in Israel. And there were some 50 or 60 Arab villagers from Kfar Kasem, near Petah Tikva, who were out in the fields. They had not heard about the curfew. When they came back, the soldiers shot and killed about 50 of them. And the soldiers said at their court martial, we got orders to shoot. The officers said shoot. They shot. And Knesset members then said, that's an outrageous argument. When you receive an immoral order, you are duty-bound to violate it. It's fine, I accept that. Why is that more consistent, and why is that more proper, and why is that more ethical, and why is that more legal than saying when you receive an order which is against Torah, you don't do it? Why are we so incredibly obsessed with a complex that if we say this, it won't be an acceptable thing? First of all, what do you mean it won't be acceptable? Acceptable to who? To God, it's acceptable. To people, it may be acceptable, it may not be acceptable. Let's say it's not acceptable, so what? So what? So what? Since when do we judge things by whether it's acceptable to other people? I shudder to think at a debate today between a secular sovereign and an Arab on the question of who has the rights to Israel. I would shudder to watch such a debate. The Arab would get up with full confidence and total confidence and say, it's ours and you came and you stole it from us and you took it from us and so on and so on. The sovereign would say, well, he certainly wouldn't say it's ours because God gave it to us. That's it. He certainly wouldn't say, well, 2,000 years ago my ancestors were here, because big deal. I mean, that was 2,000 years ago. Times change. What he would say, and what they do say is, well, you're right. But the fact is that we're here now, and we have to reach some kind of a compromise. That's not a very, very effective argument. In fact, I would think that that's fascism in its greatest state. We stole the land, but since we're here, so we... That's no argument to me. That is fascism. That really is. Because the fact is that the education system of Israel is a failure. It's bankrupt. It never understood that before you can put out a good pilot or a good doctor, you have to put out a good Jew. Then he'll be a good pilot too. That's one. Then he'll be a good doctor. But if he's not a good Jew, he won't know why he's in the country. First of all, he'll have grave doubts about the justice of his cause. What right do I have to be? Secondly, in just in practical terms, he'll say, what am I doing here? 3 years in the army. Every year afterwards, 40 days. Heavy taxes. Possibility of wars. Always tension. When my cousin writes me from Los Angeles, he writes me a letter, Shema Chalaya, which means in German. What are you doing over there? Come here. Get your green card. Green card, you see, a green card. And you work here, nonsense. You meet a girl with 2 heads. What's the difference? They marry her. What's the difference? You stay here in America. So they do that. They do that. They do that. Over 100 Jewish women have married soldiers from the UN. Ireland, Finland, Germany, France. The volunteers that come to work on settlements, you would see German girls, Swedish girls, English girls. Tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. Every kibbutz now has lost 1/3 of its people to marriage. And they don't stay inside Israel. They marry in England or Denmark or Germany and so on. So we have to face up to the fact that the real struggle inside Israel is between those Jews who want to be Jewish Jews, one Jewish state. And those people want a pale carbon copy of of some Western, American preference. That's the real struggle. That is the real struggle. Jewish values versus Western values. In that struggle is a bitter one. It is a bitter one. It is really a bitter struggle. There is hate today on both sides. And I mean hate. Hate. That's the worst thing that could ever be. The worst thing that could ever be. We have Jews hating each other, which could lead God to a civil war. That is the worst of all. From this, of course, comes the Arab problem. The Arab problem isn't an Arab problem. It's a far, far greater problem than just an Arab problem. It has to do once again with a terribly painful question of contradiction between Judaism, Zionism on one hand, and Western democracy on the other. Anyone who gets up by Abba, even gets up these babbles in 12 languages, say something about Jewish democracy. Jewish democracy. What's he talking? Jewish democracy. Jewish democracy, Arab democracy, Chinese democracy. It's democracy. Very Jewish democracy. But he's a fool who hasn't got the courage to face up to the fact that there's a contradiction between these two values. So that was about Jewish democracy, about the Jewish state must protect the rights of the minority of Arabs, which is wonderful. But the Arabs would love to have an Arab state which would protect the rights of the minority of Jews. What does Zionism mean? Zionism is the movement for the creation of a Jewish state. That's anybody here that differs with that? That's what Zionism is. Zionism is the creation of a Jewish state, and in fact, that's what Herzl's book was called, The Jewish State. What is Western democracy? Well, first of all, let's understand what a Jewish state means. What does a Jewish state mean? What is the definition of a Jewish state? Leaving aside all the esoteric ones, religious, secular, left-wing, right-wing, what is that definition which is the common denominator for every Zionist, religious, irreligious, left, right, atheist? What is the definition which every single one of those people would agree upon? And the answer is, a Jewish state is a state with a majority of Jews. A majority of Jews. That's a Jewish state. If it's not a majority of Jews, that's not a Jewish state. You can't have sovereignty without being the majority. You can't have your country in which you are the landlord, and you're the boss, and you're the captain, and you decide unless you're the majority. If you're a minority, it's not a Jewish state. So that a Jewish state implies and demands that the state will always be a majority of Jews. And what does Western democracy say? Western democracy is clear that you don't look at a person's religion or his national creed or his ethnic background. Whoever's the majority is the majority. Period. And if the Jews are majority, then they're the majority. And if the Arabs are the majority, then they're the majority. That's democracy. And that's the antithesis of Zionism. And Zionism came into being for a Jewish state, not a democratic state. And the first basic law that Israel ever passed was a law of return, called Kashrut, which declares that all Jews, not Gentiles, have an automatic right to enter Israel and become citizens. Now, can you imagine such hear such a law? Can you imagine if there would be no such law? And I, in the Knesset, would present such a bill? Do you know what they would call me? That's right. But I didn't present that bill. Ben-Gurion did. And so therefore, it is obviously not racist. But of course it's racist if you're an Arab. And when in the UN, the Arabs pushed through the resolution that Zionism is racism, and they didn't just say it. Now, I know that Zionism is not racism, but I know that it is not democratic. It's racist. It's nonsense. Racism is a creed that says that someone who is of a certain color, is always and permanently stigmatized. We Jews don't say that. Any Arab who wants to convert and become a Jew is as Jewish as any Jew. So it isn't racism, but it's certainly not democracy. It's not democracy. Of course it isn't democracy. The Jewish National Fund's bylaws declare that state lands cannot be leased to anyone except a Jew. Can you imagine if I had passed such a bill? Now I think that that's a great law. And law of return is a great law because we came to Israel to create a Jewish state having enjoyed for 1900 years the dubious benefits of being a minority, which it was such a pleasure being there. So we decided, thank you world, but no thanks. We want our state, and there's only one way to make sure, and that is by ensuring that it will be a Jewish state. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing racist about that. And any Gentile who wants in, come on in. The water's fine. But make sure that you marry for the Jewish laws and not for the Jewish in-laws. That's so certainly. But we have to face the fact that there is a contradiction here. And it is a built-in contradiction in the Declaration of Independence of Israel, which is a schizophrenic document if ever there was one. On the one hand, it speaks of Anu machuzim bezot al hakamat medina yehudit. We hereby proclaim the establishment of a Jewish state, all that implies. And then equal rights for this, for that, equal political rights. What do we equal political rights? What does that mean? Well, it should mean that if the Arabs are a majority, they have the equal political right to be the majority in Knesset too. Everybody is making tremendous fuss over this new Arab consul general in Georgia, in Atlanta. Except the Arabs, because they're smarter than we are. Because they know that that's tokenism. A consul, and Arab consul general. Now that proves that it's equal. I want to see the ambassador to Washington, an Arab. I want to see that. I want to see the chief of staff, an Arab. I want to see the prime minister, an Arab. I want to hear one of the Democrats in Israel say, yes, 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 the chief of staff. If he's an Arab, then that's fine with me. The hypocrisy is so blatant, it reeks to the heavens. Zionism will never allow the Arabs the rights that Jews have, the political rights. Never, never. And anyone who tells you otherwise is either a liar or an ignoramus. And that's the contradiction. And the Arabs know it. There's not one Arab in Israel. When people ask me, are there any good Arabs? That question has in such contempt for the Arabs that I am appalled. Are there any good Arabs? What does this Jew mean when he says, are there any good Arabs? He means, are there any Arabs who, despite the fact that they believe that it's their country, are willing to sit quietly and peacefully and let you rule. See, that's what this Jew means. Are there any good Arabs? Well, I say that they're all good Arabs. Every one of them is a good Arab. What is a good Arab? Well, what is a good Jew? A good Jew is someone who wants Israel to be a Jewish state. That's a good Jew. Well, now let me tell you what a good Arab is. You know what a good Arab is. Wants to be an Arab state. They're all good Arabs. Every one of them is a good Arab. What does that have to do with the fact that we are facing a problem that 250,000, 730,000, a million and a half good Arabs don't want Israel. There's not one Arab in Israel who enjoys living in Israel, the Jewish state. Not one, not the single Arab. There's not one Arab who enjoys living in a country which is called the Jewish state. How would you like living in Oral Roberts, Christian state? Well, that's how much the Arabs love living in a Jewish state. Why this contempt for Arabs? It is a contempt which is incredible. It's a contempt which is based upon the fact that we raise their living standards, so therefore they must love us. We have given them toilets, so only people whose minds run to toilets go. You don't buy a person's pride, his national pride, by raising his living standards. I mean, that's like out of Rudyard Kipling. That's like some British major in India. And what do the natives want? Found the jungle and turned it into a garden? Well, what the natives want is the following. They say, you're right, but it was our jungle, now it's your garden. Well, that's exactly what the Arabs say when they hear some J&F speaker say, we found the desert and turned it into a garden. You're right, but it's my desert. Now it's your garden. So don't have contempt for the Arabs. Respect them. I respect them. That's why I want to throw them out. Because if I didn't respect them, I would also play this stupid game. How happy they are. Shimon Peres last year got up in a debate on education, on the budget. He got up. It was like out of hell. He got up and he said, boasted. He said, 35 years ago there were the Arabs of Israel were illiterates. And today there are 4,000 Israeli Arabs studying in the universities in Israel. And he beamed. And I thought to myself, he's crazy. I'm crazy. Because one of us has to be crazy. Because the most dangerous Arabs of Israel are the 4,000 Arabs in the university. You have to be insane to boast of the fact that you are creating the future leaders of the PLO with scholarships, with Jewish money. So, in any case, we have a problem. We have a problem. You can't buy the Arabs. The young Arab is much more radical than his father was. His father hated Jews too. His father was illiterate. And if he gave 50 dunam of land, so he was mabsut. He was satisfied. His son is not mabsut. His son is a lawyer, or a chemist, or a teacher, and he's a nationalist, and he's burning with anger. And I understand it perfectly. It's amazing how the Arabs and I understand each other. Perfect. It's amazing how neither of us can understand Jews. It's incredible. Sometimes I sit and I don't know where. I really think that we Jews need a national couch. Not to grasp such a simple thing. Now, if I were just speaking about theory, numeric theory, this isn't theory. The Arabs of Israel are growing. I saw an article in the Jewish Week. It's rare. Proving that it's not true, they're not growing. Of course they're not growing. Go into any maternity ward, in any hospital in Israel, and you watch the ratio of Arab babies to Jewish babies, and you'll see who's growing. Incredible. I mean, what bothers me is a deliberate effort to commit suicide. There was this army of Jewish lemmings. Incredible. But proudly marching, racing to commit suicide. The Arabs of Israel are growing at a rate 3 times that of the Jews. That's a birth rate. Now, I'm not talking about the other problem. And the other problem is that there is no aliyah today. The only reason why we Jews in Israel are a majority today is because of the huge aliyah that came in the late 40s and early 50s. Today there is no aliyah. No aliyah. I would settle for no aliyah. But there is a yeridah. They're fleeing the country. The greatest weapon that Zionism has going for it today is the immigration quotas in America. Thank God for that. Can you imagine if there were no quotas? Half of Israel would be driving taxis. Can you imagine that? It's their dream to live in America. Now, what is going to be in 10 years? Let's assume that the Arabs sit quietly for 10 years. There are no bombs, there are no stones. The Arabs sit quietly and do tshuva. Arafat gets up and calls out the Arabs of Israel, make love, not war. Every night that's what they do. How many, just questions, such a simple question. How many Arabs will there be in Israel in 10 years? How many will sit in the Knesset? They don't have to be the majority to create a bloodbath in Israel. When 1/3 of the country is Arab, we'll have a Northern Army. The Galilee today has a majority. That's our Northern Army. That's our Northern Army. They had a demonstration of Galilee Arabs just outside. Carry signs. We will redeem the Galilee with blood. We're not talking about Samaria and Judea. That's in their pocket already. Galilee. Why not? Why do they say that in Judea? Because there's a majority of Arabs there. But it's the same thing today in the Galilee. The Jews are running away from them in Galilee. You go to cities like Akko, or Ramle, or Lod, or Yafo. I don't mean old Yafo. Cafe, restaurant. I mean Yafo where people live. Not, it's like Vegas. People live in Vegas. Vegas is a city. It also has a gambling strip. Well, Yafo is a city. It also has whatever. These are cities that are becoming Arab cities. That are becoming Arab cities. Arabs come and they offer twice the price of an apartment. And they offer cash. Dinars, Jordan, dollars. Where do they get this money from? Where do they have this money? This is PLO money that comes across the bridges freely from Jordan. There was once a Jewish national fund. Now there's an Arab national fund. Karen Kayemet Yishmael. And they're buying up, you can see it in Yafo, Chov Yefet. House by house they buy. House by house. And they're putting into it Arabs from Gaza who are either former residents of Jaffa, because Jaffa had 80,000 Arabs in 1948, and they fled to Gaza. So now they're coming back. And what they're doing is more than just buying them. They're creating a political fact, because there will come a day, very, very soon, when the PLO will make a dramatic announcement. They accept the state of Israel and all the UN resolutions, all of them, including the 1947. And they're creating political facts, because Jaffa, under the 47 plan, was Arab, in the Arab state. And Ramle was in the Arab state. And Lud was in the Arab state. And Akka was in the Arab state. And people sit and don't see this. Now, clearly, we don't have much time. Because not only is the Arab growing in numbers, he's also growing in quality. The Israeli Arab today, the young one, is light years different than the Arab of 40 years ago. You go to Jaffa today, you can't tell who's an Arab. It isn't like the Arabs from Shechem, Chevron. These Arabs walk around in jeans. They speak Hebrew perfectly. They've even gotten rid of the book. They speak Hebrew perfectly. You can't tell. You can't tell who they are. And they have chutzpah. They're born today. Because they were born free. They were born free. Thanks to us. Under Ben Gurion, after 5 o'clock, Arabs couldn't leave their village. You know that? Arabs in villages in Israel, after 5 p.m. could not leave the village without a special pass from the army. That was till 1965. That's all done. It's finished. You go to Akko today, there is not a neighborhood which isn't a mixed neighborhood. In Yerushalayim today. Every neighborhood has now has Arabs in it. In Neve Yaakov, Yerushalayim, you have 62 Arab families with all the drugs that come in there, and the prostitution, and the fear. Now, if you get up and say that's a bad thing, then you're a racist. But it's a bad thing, and you're not a racist. Saying it's a bad thing. It's a dangerous thing. It's a terrible. Maybe the most dramatic example of the difference between the vision and the realization is the fact that for 2,000 years we dreamed of escaping the fear of the ghetto, the move, and living tall and strong and without fear and anger. I want to tell you something. Jews today are afraid to walk in the old city from Shar Shechem to Master's Gate to the Kotel. Jews are afraid. They're afraid. There are stabbings. Every day there are incidents. Every week there are stabbings. In Haifa's lower city, which was once walled Arabs, they were at that until 40, there were also 70,000 Arabs in Haifa. And then that whole, and they was fled, and the whole city became Jewish. Is that right? Yeah. Today, the whole lower city today is Arabic. Chalisa is a section of Haifa in Lower. On Yom Kippur, last Yom Kippur, Arabs attacked the shul. They came into the shul. Stones at the shouting. You didn't hear about this. You didn't hear about this. Of course you hear about this. Of course you did. It wasn't in the papers in Israel either. We heard about it from the people there. Because we have become the address for every Jew that has fear, a complaint. Jews today are afraid to walk there. Jews are running away. It's just, when I founded the JDL, it was because Jews were afraid to walk in Brooklyn. I came to Israel and I found the JDL. I found Brooklyn. This is what we, Shwanat Shapira in Tel Aviv. Jewish women are afraid to leave the houses after dark. There are 700 Arabs living in that area. 700 Arabs from Gaza. And the law says that Arabs who are from the territories are not allowed to stay in the country, in the green line, after 1 a.m. So how come that? Of course, there's a law which is not enforced. When they want a law, there's a law. When they don't want a law, then there is no law. 7,000 Arab homes in the Galilee were built illegally, without a permit. The courts issued orders to knock the houses down. Asa Weizmann came, did away with the orders. did away with court order. What was over here? Anarchy here? He did away with it. That's it. Period. You try and add a porch in Tel Aviv without a permit, and they'll come with a bulldozer the next day. This is the tragedy. We had a case just 3 weeks ago in district court in Beersheba. A 21-year-old Bedouin youngster, the son of, his name was Nasser Abu Sirhan, the son of the sheikh of the Abu Sirhan tribe, attempted to rape a 16-year-old girl in Moshav Omer. If you know the country, so Moshav Omer is a very, very rich Moshav, right? It may be 6 kilometers from Beersheba. It's a rich place and a very liberal place, and they love the Bedouin. They love the Bedouin. The Bedouins love them. So he attempted to rape the girl. He was found guilty of a 16-year-old attempted rape, assault, and he slashed her with a knife. And he did not receive a prison sentence. And the district court, Yitzhak Shapir, said the reason why he didn't give a prison sentence was the fact that a prison sentence would be looked upon the Bedouin as vengeance, and it would hamper the sensitive balance between the Jews and the Bedouins. Now, I want to tell you something. Can you imagine a Jew attempting to rape a Bedouin girl, and the judge saying, I'm not going to give him a sentence because it might hamper between Jews and Bedouins. These are things that you never hear about. You just never hear about it. It's not in any of the papers. I try to put into the Jewish press sometimes. Yes, sometimes it isn't Jewish press, but you won't see it in the Jewish week ever, or the Jewish month, or the Jewish year, whatever. That is never there. Never, 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 never. When Moshe Tamam, the Jewish soldier, 19-year-old Jewish soldier, was murdered. So first of all, most people in Israel don't know the entire story. It was such a tragedy. Moshe Tamam was a 19-year-old soldier who, in August of 1980, was standing at the Bet Lev crossroads. Now, if you know anything, if you know Israel, Bet Lev is right near. It's in the heart of Israel, right near Netanya. Now, what? Right near Netanya. So here is a kid in broad daylight, 19-year-old baby, soldier, 19-year-old, broad daylight, hitching a ride, and a car stop. Now, I heard this story at the trial. At the trial in the military court in Lund of the 4 Arabs that murdered. And I want you to know that these 4 Arabs were Israeli Arabs from Bakal Garbia. Bakal Garbia is in the little triangle. It's inside the state of Israel. You are four Arabs. We gave them education. We gave them jobs. We gave them the car with which they picked up Tamam. These are Israeli Arabs, citizens. The car stopped. They asked him, the soldier, where he was going. And he didn't know that they were Arabs because these are Israeli Arabs and the license plate is an Israeli license plate. Now, we presented a bill in Knesset to have Arabs, I don't care who they are, with special plates. And of course, it was turned down as a racist bill. So, we'll see what happened to Moshe Tamam because there was no racist bill, thank God. He was picked up. They took him to Baka, the Arab village. For 2 days, he was tortured. They cut off his testicles and cut out his eyes and murdered him. And that wasn't even in the papers. The police told me, and so that I should mention it. And it still wasn't in the papers. After if I speak, I mean, who listens? A stenographer and the speaker. And the that's true. Yeah. I was at the funeral mother's kid. And I saw the father and mother. And the mother said to me, if you had killed 11, I would have cried. At least my son fought for me. Thought I was killed. Killed inside Israel. My land. And that's true. And that's really, really true. In any case, the question arises, what to do? What to do? And the answer is that we have answers what to do. There are answers. First of all, concerning the question is, the answer is clear, and it's a halachic answer. And it's a Zionist answer, and above all, it's a rational answer. It's a logical answer. We cannot continue as we are now. The Arabs of Israel must be given an opportunity, a choice, to live in Israel with no national rights. That they will not vote against it. They have nothing to say about the country. If they accept that, then we have to grant them their social rights, cultural rights, religious rights, and economic rights. Absolutely. But they have nothing to say about Israel. Nothing. Not a thing. They are resident strangers. Resident strangers. Ir Toshav. They sit there quietly. Just sit quietly. Shut up. And enjoy life quietly. If not, then they must go. Then they have to go. Then they have to go. That's it. Out. Out. Just out. Question of hating Arabs. I don't hate Arabs. I love Jews, which is not easy. Not easy at all. I don't wish the Arabs. I wish the Arabs well. May they live happily elsewhere. They have 22 countries. 22 countries they have. And we have one country. No compromise on that. So everybody is, but what if they don't go? What kind of, at times I'm like, what if they don't go? Someone has a gun and you don't. You will. Right, that sounds brutal. It's about time that Jews were brutal at a time when it is necessary to be brutal. Because God feels, I don't want it the other way around. We've had that enough. During the 1972 Olympics in Munich, 3 Arab terrorists got 11 Jewish sportsmen, big guys, and said move, and they moved, because they had the guns on them. More to the point, can you imagine if the Arabs of Israel would put on the radio here that the new prime minister is Kahane? Boy, would they move. Would they? Because it is important that you recognize what the name Kahane means to the Arabs. It means terrorism. They are terrified. So when people tell me that I should become a little more moderate and changes, a little more moderate, God forbid, I worked too long and too hard on this image. If the Arabs would ever believe that I'm really a nice guy, it's all over us. I want them to believe that I yes. Right. Because that's what they understand. They understand strength. And the pity is that people who live in the West have not the slightest idea of the mentality of the East. We think that everybody thinks the same. We sit down, have coffee, cake, and we'll talk things over. Well, that's Moshe Aaron's once put it well. He says, this is the Middle West. This is the Middle East, not the Middle West. Well, it is. It's the Middle East. It's a different mentality, different people, different concepts, different views. And strength. But it is because of this. Yes, it is, of course. But, I mean, George Habash is a Christian actor. The fact of the matter is that they understand strength. And they're not going to love you. Who wants to be loved? Be loved. Just get out. That's hate me from afar. But be afraid. That's what they understand. Fear. And I understand that also. they'll go. There is no question about that. If they're convinced that they're facing a government which will throw them out, they'll go, especially when we are prepared to offer them, if they go willing, a thing which they never offered Sephardic Jews, compensation for their property. If you go peacefully, you'll get the money, eventually. If you don't, I'll throw you out without a penny. And they're convinced that I'm crazy. That I'll probably kill them. I don't want to kill them, I just want them out. So they'll take the money, no question about that. It's a question here of, do we have the courage and the will, and above all, the faith in God? And that's the key here, and I want to end on that note, because I want to tell you something. I have, after years and years and years of observation and experience, I'm convinced that most Orthodox Jews believe in mitzvahs and not in God. I am convinced of that. I am convinced of that. That the average Jew does not believe in God, no matter how much he shakes in his davening. He is a ritualist. He is a believer in ritual, and he does that well. I'm sure that the local Eruv here is alive and well. But the truth of the matter is that if you want to really show that you have faith in God, then you have to do those things which are difficult and dangerous. And there are certain things that are just tests of real faith. Afraid of what are we afraid of? The world? What world? Singleton? What world? Congo? Togo? What world? America? Oh, America! So then stop talking about the world. What will the world say? What will America say? Who knows what America is? Who knows? How do we know what America is? Americans don't give a care about Jews or Arabs. Americans care about America, which is normal. I wish that Jews would think about Jews. Of course, though, America either backs Israel or doesn't back Israel on the basis of its own self-interest. That's the name of the game, self-interest. If America believes that Israel is necessary for its self-interest, it will back Israel no matter what it does. It may protest, it may condemn, like in Lebanon. It condemns. So it condemns. When Menachem Begin bombed the Iraqi nuclear reactor in Baghdad, it was frightening. The whole world was. I tell you, I couldn't sleep for a month. And then it stopped, and there's no reaction. And that's the way of the world. Every month, another issue comes up. Afghanistan, Antarctica. The question is, who's stronger, God or Ronald Reagan? That's the question. It's not a flip question. It's a very, very, very serious question. Who is stronger? And I fear that in our subconscious, the answer is Reagan. You can see Reagan, you can feel Reagan, you can't see God. So God is, God has his place, no question about it, and you better know it. And so on. But God does run the world. And he is stronger than anyone else. And he will do for us if we do the right thing and if we show. And every Jew has his own private Red Sea. And if you jump into it, God splits it for you. And if you don't jump into it, he doesn't split it for you. And that's it. And that's a rule. And that's what we have to have faith again. And start speaking as Jews and not as some carbon copy of Gentiles with the Amrit. That's the name of the game. And that's the truth. And that's the key. Faith. We're standing today in an era which we can bring the Messiah. No question about it. This is an era which is special. This really is a messianic era. You don't have to have anything except eyes to see. To see. The redemption for the Jewish people can come in one of two ways. Swiftly, speedily, or God forbid, first with prayerful, horrible agony. And we have to try and save the Jews there. That's faith. Moving the Arabs out is an act of faith. It can be done with no problems if you have that faith. The other act of faith that I want to speak to you about here is the question of Aliyah. Aliyah. What are you doing? What are we doing? At this Seder, this coming Seder, once again, throughout Woodmere and Lawrence, not even in Brooklyn, there will be 500,000 Jews that are going to get up and lie. Next year in Jerusalem, and no attention to Jews. It's a lie, it's a fraud. And it's a corrupting and a corrosive thing. We live a fraud. We make Judaism a fraud. And we know it. When God took the Jews out of Egypt, they freed them. He didn't say, now you're free, now go to the fight now. Judaism is a land-centered faith. It's the only faith in the world that demands that all the Jews live in a special place. It's a holy place. And we shouldn't be here. Not only should we be here, but God's not going to let us be. It's some game that throughout the Torah 150 times it mentions punishment, that the exile is a punishment. So we say, it'll be difficult living in the terrible exile of Lawrence or Woodmere. Well, it isn't a game. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible. And no matter how golden the exile is, there have been golden exiles like this. Believe me, that the Jews of Germany in 1923 just as well as the Jews of Germany were more confident because they didn't have the Holocaust. They were so German, it was frightening. They were more German than any German that ever lived. And if anyone would have come to them and said, it's going to happen, I mean, really laugh. Because, I mean, would have said, what are you would say, crazy? Look at us. We really are free, and they were. And we really are equal, and they were equal. And the foreign minister of Germany in 1923 already was a Jew. And the minister of justice who wrote the Constitution was a Jew. And the Constitution was a Constitution that makes this one in this country look like some, some document of the Middle Ages, a reactionary document, some liberal document, a socialist document, a socialist government, and within a space of less than a decade, Hitler failed. Of course, there was a terrible crash out of the blue, an economic crash. People were terrified, and frightened people are dangerous. There ever would be a crash in this country, an economy which is teetering on the brink. Don't think that the stock market is in it. The stock market is the biggest gambling place north of Atlantic City. No relevance to the economy of this country. Nothing to do with it. It's a game where there's no relation to economics, to production, to anything. It's a game where people make money quickly. The truth is that the economy of the West is the banking system is on the verge of collapse. One more country like Brazil has to get up and say, not only are we not going to pay back the principal, but we can't pay back the interest either. There are hundreds of millions of dollars in bad loans by private banks. Latin American countries, other third world countries. They'll never see that money. Meantime, they have to pay out interest. Deposit. Balance of payments in this country it's not bleeding. It's a hemorrhage. This country is losing jobs regularly. Thousands every single month are being wiped out permanently. You can't compete with, forget Japan already. Japan has problems competing today with Hong Kong and Singapore and Korea. Wait till Haiti learns. Wait a while. In Haiti, all the Major League Baseballs today are made in Haiti. Because they pay them 5 cents a year. I don't know. You can't compete with that. And when the American who has lived a good life for the last 40 years, for what a good life he's like, you don't create anti-Semitism. The anti-Semitism is there. But when you have a colored television set and beer in front of you and a Super Bowl, so they hate Jews, but quietly. When they repossess the beer, then he hates Jews now. Oh. Poor people are never dangerous when they become poorer. It's people that have money who become poor that are dangerous. They can't accept that. They won't accept it. And they blame the Jews. They're not blame the blacks. But Jews have this insipid kind of a comfort. Well, they blame the blacks. It's not true. They blame Jews for everything, including blacks. Everybody blames the Jews. The blacks blame the Jews. And the whites blame the Jews. The worst part is that Jews blame the Jews. This is probably the worst of what we Jews suffer from an insidious form of AIDS called guilt. Incredible. It's just, especially Jewish AIDS. In any case, let me tell you something. You can't escape. Every Jonah has his way. You can't escape. Think carefully. It's nice to look at it. Great, really great, immense. But it's not ours. It's changing. And it's changing. And there's not much time. I could go on speaking a lot. There's so much to speak about. Economic problems of Israel, which can be resolved in one way. Private enterprise, capitalism. That's the name of the game. That's the answer. The bureaucrats of Israel are choking. You want to open a store over here in Nassau County? What do you do? You find that store. You open a store. In Israel, it's an invention. You need a permit. You need a license for the permit. A permit for the license for the permit. Only God knows how many licenses are needed, and only the devil made the various taxes that you have to get before opening the store. You can't be honest in Israel, period, in business. You must be a crook, otherwise you're out of business. And it doesn't have to be that way. We Jews made every other country rich, except our own country. Private enterprise. Let the Jew breathe. Let him open a store without a license. What's the difference? Open a store. Let him make money. You don't raise taxes, you choke him. You cut the taxes, and when he makes money, he'll pay his taxes already. There are Israelis here who never worked when they were there. Here they work 12 hours a day. Because over here, if you work hard, you can get ahead. There, what do you get? Income tax, or you get a tax. That has to stop. That is going to stop. Jews have to learn to work again in Israel. And nobody works in Israel. We have 90,000 coolies, Arabs, coming every single morning across the Union line and then back again. That's a sick thing. That's sick. A normal country works. We intend to have in our platform. We intend to have a law which every soldier in his 3-year army service, in his second year, every soldier in his second year must learn a manual trade in the army. Must learn a manual trade. Must. And then in his 3rd year, he's sent home. But he stays in the army, and he must report every morning to the labor exchange to work in his trade, so that he gets used to working again. So then, when the Arabs leave, I'm not going to be, but who's going to do the work? The Jews will do the work. There's now no choice. And then when the employer, this greedy Jew, who had at this moment hired 2 Arabs at the price of 1 Jew, he won't have any he'll have to give a decent wage. And Jews will work. Who built Israel before 67? The Russians. We did. We worked. And that's called normal. There are many things, but in any case, I want you to hear personally from me, because my basic problem is that everybody has heard about Kahane, and so few people have heard Kahane. And that's a problem. I can't appear on television. I'm barred from TV and radio by a ruling by the state. So I haven't appeared on radio and TV in any program since 1980. So obviously, what you hear about is through, PRs of the government. So it's important that you came here tonight and you heard. Now there's going to be an election coming up. I've been saying that for a long time. This time, it's really the insults are getting too much. In case this odd couple is getting divorced, that's for sure. And we have a real chance this election, being the 3rd largest, real chance. I don't know if you see polls, if you don't see polls. The only polls to watch are our rallies every single Saturday. Beginning with the election, right after the election in 1984, we started running for the next one. Since 84, every night we have 2 rallies a night. Every single night. We shake hands with 200, 300, 400 every single night. Every single night for 2.5 years. We've reached neighborhoods that no one has ever reached. No SMM has ever been in these areas. And we have gone. The base of our support is Sephardi Gulf. I must tell you that these Sephardi Jews are the last normal people that live. They're untouched by college professors. They're normal. They're normal. They didn't learn about Arabs in some seminar at the ADL or at Hebrew U. They lived under Arabs. They know what Arabs are. No one has to come in and say, Arabs like you. They know the Arabs don't like us. And they don't like the Arabs. We expect to get, I expect at least 10 seats. At least 10 seats. And we're going to be the balance of power in this next. The Likud will not be able to form a nationalist government without power. There is no way. And we're going to make the first demands, which are going to start changing changing Israel around. And there will be many demands. First of all, to start making life a little more miserable for the Arabs. We're going to demand that every Arab at the age of 18 go in the army, not the army, national service for 3 years working on the roads. He's going to lose 3 years of his life just like we. Secondly, why do they have so many babies? We subsidize their babies. Every Arab baby, every month, a check from Bituach Leumi, from National Insurance. We pay. We are psychos. We are going to transfer the national insurance from the government to the Jewish agency, and then pay only to Jews. You want babies? You pay for it. That's the second thing. We're going to start making life extremely, and taxes. We're going to make them pay not 1 penny more than they should, but not 1 penny less. If Jews paid the the percentage of taxes that Arabs pay, it would be heaven. They don't pay taxes. And the government doesn't shepherd with them. Let them sit quiet. They're going to pay taxes through the nose, just like Jews. Just like Jews. And then they'll understand if this is like, if this is what it's like when Kahane has only 10 seats, what's going to be when? Because our hope lies in the election after this one, when all of the youngsters in Israel, they are 14, 15, 16, they never heard of Begin. Hey, Begin was a baby. They never saw Begin. They learned Begin speak. They only know Kahane. Wait till the election after this, and then you'll see this quantum leap. That's what we're looking towards, and it's a race against time. We have to, in a few years, correct terrible horrors done by Jews in 40 years. Can do it, and I have tremendous faith. I have tremendous faith. I see light. I see the light because I see the rallies. We have rallies that are not just rallies. They are, they are love fests. I mean, the crowds that kiss you, hug you, because we give them hope. We really give them hope because we say what they think. And that's the point. Israel was built upon fear. People afraid whose job is this. They credit us. Someone gets up finally and says, it's like a breath of fresh air, he says what they've been thinking for 40 years. So certainly they're not heroes. I don't want them to be heroes. Cowardly walk to the polls. And cowardly take a cowardly ballot. And cowardly put it into the... And be cowards, but give me your vote. And why am I here tonight? To entertain you. I'm going back tomorrow. And we're already working on our campaign. We need money. And you can vote, which is terrible because you don't live in Israel. We need money from you. You need money to help me from violence. I want to refund. And you can help me because I truly, sincerely believe that Kahane is the hope of the Jewish people. And I shudder to think, this coming election, there's only one, there's one or two choices. Kahane or Arafat. All the rest, there is no ultimate difference between any of the other parties. Because none of them deal with this problem, which is earth-shaking. So you have a choice, Arafat or Kahane. And I'm sure that you have questions. Now, how do you think questions? All of that, you owe us. You owe us.
Rabbi, I'm Ken Sidman, National Coordinator. And I'd just like to say that someone came here tonight, he's from Brooklyn, it's not from the area, because he wanted to give the rabbi, start this off right. So he gave the rabbi $1,000 in cash and wanted to be anonymous. It's a very nice donation. I'd like to see someone match it, or beat it, or triple it, because we need the money. What the rabbi says is absolutely true, and the only thing that's slowing us down is lack of funds. So is there anybody here?
I'll match it.
Okay.
I'll match it.
Okay. Anybody else? That's.
Yeah, I bought an anonymous gift tonight of 5,000.
Anyone else? I'm afraid to ask. 10,000? No. I'd like to tell you also a story about my brother who I'm very proud of. This year he went to yeshiva in Israel. But for the years before that, he was driving cab in Boston, and that's where I come from. And every time he heard that the rabbi was coming to Boston, he would work extra hours, nights, Sundays, extra hours. And every time the rabbi came, he'd give him $500 in cash right in his hand. He called it cabbing for Kahane. And I think it's a great term because he didn't look at it as something that he's sacrificing it as an obligation. Because Rabbi Kahane, as he says, is the person who's standing between us keeping our Jewish state or, God forbid, losing it. So I'd like you people to do a little tapping for Kahane tonight, and here's some other donations. Who else?
It doesn't have to be fun.
We'll take 4. Yeah. Okay, we have another donation from the Duvalier family, $1,000. Double it. Now don't be shy, or we'll take a lesser amount too. Do we have any donations? 500? 400. Let me explain one more thing. When I came up here, and worked for the rabbi, I did so at a financial loss, but I believe, and I still do believe, that agreement with the rabbi doesn't do him or the Jewish people any good. And I can't vote in Israel, and I can't be on the front lines. But I can help him in my way, and American Jews can also help him in the way that you can help best, which is to help give us the money. Any other? Did you want to? Another donation? You can send the checks up. We got a $100 donation from.
Okay, Jewish overview is tax deductible.
Jewish overview?
Jewish
Yeah.
overview.
What is the Jewish overview?
Tax deductible. Why shouldn't Reagan pay for it? Overview. In the meantime, like while you're writing checks, you can ask questions. I'm sure that you're capable of doing both.
Let me just see if we have. We only got. This guy's gonna get away cheap. We only got $80.
Here you go.
Beautiful. 50.
Another 20.
Another 20. 40. Sam, you're poor tonight. 50. Another 20. We'll take change too.
I have other stuff to have in this house. My question, starting with this, is twofolded. What exactly is the JDL today? Is it what you started, what you founded? What is its status? And what connection do you have with it today?
I don't have any connection with it. JDL today is, I think, a very, very badly needed group. I think there's a real need for JDL. I think that the problem is that for the last 5, 6 years, maybe even 10 years, it really hasn't been an effective JDL. And as of this moment, there are probably 2 or 3 groups that form themselves some form of JDL. I think JDL is a very, very necessary group. I think that the anti-Semitism is on the right. The problem is, you can't have a Jewish fist without a Jewish head. You can't have it. It's not good to have Jewish heads without. So, sure. But the problem, I was able to form JDL because we created an organization which didn't just go around talking about violence. It had a philosophy and ideology that was grounded in Jewish values. And it is a Jewish value to kill Nazis. See, that is a Jewish value. But if you want to kill Nazis just to kill Nazis, and then there are no Nazis around, then maybe you'll start taking on someone else, maybe even Jews. Secondly, JDL can only be a group. By nature, a group like JDL attracts a certain amount of people that are violence prone. You need a strong leader for that. You need a strong leader to keep those people in line. We were able to have that in JDL for the first decade. After that, it lost both things. I think the philosophy and also strong leadership. And so what you had was very well-meaning people. Well-meaning is not enough. So that I think there's a great need for it today. I don't believe that there's an effective JDO today that exists. There may be a couple of groups, and each one has a handful of people, and that's not good.
What happened when you left to the JDL that we had?
You know, I went on Aliyah, so first naturally the thing it kept going for a while. We were never able to get a strong leader. The JDL needs a leader that will go into the streets first. I used to get arrested. And when people ask me why I get arrested, I couldn't tell our people, we have to free the Russian Jews. And we have to charge the police line and break the news of the Soviet Union. So it could be a headline story. And now I'm going to the office and let me know how things went. See, nobody would then do it. But if I charged the police first and went over the barricades first, then they went. And that's what happened. We couldn't get people to do that. There was people with stature and at the same time with the willingness to get arrested. I don't think that there's any big deal to getting arrested in America. I mean, after you've been arrested in Israel, you appreciate what due process is. So, really over here, you're really and truly. I mean, you're arrested and either give you a Vera summons or you're up before the judge within a couple of hours or out, in and out, 1, 2, 3. And I was arrested once 5 times in 5 days. So, nevertheless, to the average person, to be arrested is a terrible thing. I certainly don't walk around advocating people getting arrested just for its own sake. But if we hadn't done what we did with the Russian Jews, then the Soviet Jewish issue would have never gotten off the and if today there are patrols in all neighborhoods, and it's an accepted thing because when we started it, it was condemned and it was vilified and called a vigilante group, called names and so on. And we did it, and that also was arrested. In our platform, I firmly believe that a JDO is needed, but a professional. And in our platform in Israel, one of our planks states that we believe that Israel has to be the trustee of all the Jewish people, not just Jews inside Israel, well, not just an Israeli outside, but when a Jew is threatened anywhere, the state of Israel is protected. We intend to set up a special unit of professionals who will deal only with problems affecting non-Israeli Jews. For example, I don't know if you recall when the Nazis marched in Skokie. So, 2,000 Jews went down everywhere, which is fun, good, all right. But what really happened was that the Nazis got coverage, national coverage, TV coverage. I always believed that if Israel would have sent 2 professionals, not 2,000 Jews, 2 professionals at night, with no television, and lifted the building, and then just gone away into the night quietly, no messages, no one ever again. Nothing. That's what I intend to have in Israel. For example, I don't think that any former Nazi should ever die in bed. I think it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace to Jewish people. There are no Nazis here. Israel should have people who are professionals, taking care of them. We know where they live. I want them to live in abject terror. That's what the JDO should be doing. It's not. I don't think.
What did you say? You live in terror?
I want those Nazis to live in terror, waiting for the long hand of the Israeli squad to when they come. if there's no JDL, then this has to be, and that will be. I believe, for example, that the Israeli army, not as the army, but in practice, not officially, should have special training camps inside Israel and bring over young Jews from all over the world and give them training. I think it's an important thing. So if the JDL can grow here, it can grow from Israel. As far as young is concerned, I don't know any more than you know. I mean about I saw the papers too. Nevertheless, I think that any Jew who is arrested for any crime on behalf of the Jewish people has to be held.
One question I want to know, of course, you believe in everything you say. We believe you that you believe. You tell us that we don't believe. Okay, you may have a point there. Why do the people in Israel, when you talk and walk out, the believers, are they also non-believers? What are they afraid?
Well, it's not very
Yes, and they can
Here's what I think.
You're
You're right. Obviously, different parties work out for reasons. Leftists work out because the right wing works out because they're afraid that I'm taking votes for it. And that's the real thing. The real truth is that.
Who's with you in the group there?
You mean
That bothers me. All the religious people should be with you.
why just the religious people? I mean, they're
Religious people,
Bear
because
in
you
mind-
think as they do, and they think as you do.
Bear-
Evidently, they don't think.
Negative to allow, if the anti-Semitism erupts, if all of these latent backgrounds